Seforno gets very excited. Maybe I got excited because I saw the Seforno, But on one detail of the at the conclusion of the Sota's and the Nazir's term as a Nazir, and the pasuk says V'zos Torah HaNazir b'yom malos Yemei Nizro. Okay, this is the Torah of when he finishes his Naziris. He says V'yavi oso el Pesach ohel moed, and he brings himself to the Pesach of the ohel moed. And what the Seforno points out over here is that different than the Sota, who has to be brought by somebody else, has to be escorted by her husband. They have to be brought in. It has to be like a car. Sometimes has to be towed in. It's not enough just to, that the person drove in because they needed a 3,000-mile oil change, right? Or the amber light went on and they decided I got to go, get thee to a mechanic, right? So what happened is the Sota came to a crisis and now on the side of the road she had to be brought in, not on her own reconnaissance. That's how she arrives. And the same thing with the Metzora, had to be brought to a Kohen. They need an escort. They need some kind of a tow truck, something in order to bring them in. And the same thing with an Ebed, has to be brought by his master to the judge. He says, but what captured the attention of the Seforno is that this person, who's the Nazir, that the Ibn Ezra says is an Ish Pella. It's a wondrous person. It's because he's going against himself. While the whole world is caving into their taivas and they're doing whatever they want to do, they're doing what they naturally want to do. He says, so the Nazir somehow, he reversed course in his life, and so he becomes, since he did it for himself, that's the point that he picks up on. Since he arrested himself, and he took control of his own, without it being an emergency yet, and without it yet being, something that somebody else had to impose something on him, and now pull him over to the side of the road and say, you got a flat tire, or you got something, your license is expired, or you haven't got the right thing. So now he took it upon himself that he's going to make this improvement over there.
The more time still calls him, he has to bring the car when he finishes.
Right. So there's a little bit of a hate involved because of the precious that's involved, and he has to bend in one direction in order to straighten himself out. The Rambam says if a person wants to straighten out a midah, he wants to straighten out a character trait, and he happens to feel that he's tending in one direction, I can show you like this. You have a piece of paper, and if you keep on straightening it out, it keeps on bending back in that direction. So sometimes you have to go extremely in the other direction, and bend it the other way for a short period of time, and now it comes back to the middle. I showed it to a class one time. They said, Rabbi, that works well on paper, That doesn't work with, but doesn't work with people. Yeah, and the answer is yes. So, but this person decided to make that correction and that change by himself. That's what the Seforno gets excited about. He did it himself. Nobody else told him to do it, and somehow it's an incredible milah. He said there's nobody more mechubed than him to take him, because he's the only one. He's the most mechubed person and able to escort himself. He brings himself to the korban process because he made himself into a new person. It's not the usual course. That's why he's in the Ish Pella. The famous question is how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb?
Only one who really has to want to change.
Oh, so everybody knows the answer. I got an updated answer on that one. I do believe you can try it out with me. He said so. The answer is one. The Shul said, but the light bulb's got to want to change. I wanted to say it like this. I want to update it. If you think about it, it says the answer really is it's zero. Because once the person wants to change, what do you need the psychiatrist for anyway? He couldn't do anything, so he wasn't able to affect the change. Yeah, you need a little coach, you need a Rebbe, you need a direction, but you don't need you don't need the psychiatrist at that point over there. So and actually the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says like this. He says, Im ein ani li mili. If I'm not going to change me, then nobody can change me. If I'm not going to turn on my heart light, and if I'm not going to decide that I want to make an improvement, nobody can make me do. How many times people come and they tell me, I don't know, maybe they tell you also, see if you can change him, change her, change your mind, Rabbi, change him, make him into, see if you can. I was never able to, and I don't know anybody who was ever able to change anybody else. It's just not possible. Right? And even if somebody does come to change, you have to measure how much do they really want to change. Right? They say they want to change, but on a scale of 1 to 10, it's 1 and 2 and 3. But there's a part of them that still is not, still resistant and doesn't want to change. The greatness of the Nazir over here is that he decided on his own, with his own self-evaluation, without being forced from mibachutz, he decided on his own that he wants to make this change. And how much of a chesed is he doing with himself and doing with other people also? The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara in Brachas, Mishum Rabbi Yossi, Tova Mardas Achas Belibo Shal Adam Yosem Merkama Malkios. As a person saved himself a lot of problems from the outside. By getting it on his own and without having to be told multiple times mibachutz from the outside. I think the Gemara amends it later on. Reish Lakish calculates more. He says Yosem Meo Malkos. He says it's more than 100 Malkos. So a person saving himself from the outside. When you're trying to get somebody to change and need an intervention from the outside, and you're trying to hint to this person to tell them, and then you tell them directly, you have to tell them directly 100 times, and then you finally have to, tackle them from behind. The person saved himself a lot of problems if he would just daila chachima baramiza. It's one of the shmuzim I give in yeshiva at least a couple of times a year. To the older boys, it's called the daila chachima baramiza shmuz. Get it with a hint, Rabosai. If you learn now to get it with a hint, you'll save yourself a lot of problems. Because someday you're going to get married, and you're going to have a shviger, and you're going to have a shver. And most wives know how to give something called the look. Right? All mother-in-laws know how to give it, and many principals also know how to give the look.
Permanently on their face.
Well, yeah,
Permanently.
it's emblazoned on their. They know how to give it, and if we don't know how to get it with a look, then it's going to cause a lot of pressure that's going to be needed from the outside to make that correction. If the person is now able to give himself that one little knop, that little knock that comes from the inside. Actually saw there's a cute little play on words. And I always thought it was a nice little joke. And I misunderstood and I understood this joke. But I used to say after school in yeshiva for many years, and I would put something nice into the mailbox of the teachers, a nice phrase, some kind of a cute pitgam or aphorism, and then put a picture with it. And some of the teachers, put it on the walls, and they use it as discussion points.
They appreciated it.
What they liked it. There was something to think about, something educational, something. So one time I decided, I'm going to try this one out. And in finding the picture, I found the parish of what the words really mean. I just thought it was a cute wordplay. He says it goes like this: silence is golden, and duct tape is silver. Okay. So I just thought, you say, what you saying gold? So you might as well, swerve into the lane and do. But I was looking. I said, let me find a picture that goes with that. And I found a picture of a guy with silver duct tape across his mouth that was, sealing his mouth shut. And next to him was some guy who was chilled out, just with his, comfortable in his skin, quiet, with quietude. And I realized that the parish is that silver is valuable, gold is more valuable. So even if the person is sitting quietly, and because he got the look, and because because the rabbi's in the room now, and I have to sit quietly during Kriyas Torah, and because my future mother-in-law is here, because all the blessed coercion that's around him. So even if he's doing it because there's pressure mibachutz from the outside, that silence is still silver. It's valuable. But if the person does it because it's coming from mibifnim, because he understands that this is the virtue is its own reward, that the schar mitzvah, because it's the right thing to do and it feels good from the inside, so that's gold. That's much more valuable. So rather than waiting for something to happen from the outside, which is also valuable to put yourself in that environment, but if a person can now work it up on the inside, that he's doing it because he realizes it's a davar tov. It's a good thing to do. So I remember one time. We have a subject of a nazir, and here we're talking about one dimension, one little small thin slice of, and one thread that comes from the subject of nazir. That the person, that the Sephora points out, that the person was doing it by himself. He was doing it with a jump start by himself. So I remember one time, I was learning early in the morning. I'll mention the name. I used to learn with Rabbi Israel Tauber for many years together, early in the morning. Maybe some people remember, whatever. He was a big businessman. He was a marbitz Torah, a chacham in many ways. And we spent many hours together, and then we'd get up early. I wouldn't say ungodly hours, godly hours. It was like unbelievable. We plowed through Maral and many other Svarim together. And I remember I used to go get the coffee and bring and deliver coffee to him and the coffee to me. So one time I went to get the coffee, and I'm making a nice strong coffee. I know the way he liked it. And he comes over to the hot water thing. No, he parks the coffee on the side. He fills up the cup with hot water, and he puts a dot of milk inside. He says, I'm having a white coffee today. I said, no coffee? I've seen the Rebbe drink, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cups of coffee. And said, suddenly, no coffee? And he said something I didn't understand at first when he said it. He said, I found out, he says, that the coffee is drinking me. That's what he said, those words. Okay, a little mystifying, words. It took me a while to digest it and to feel it. Later on, I see a mimer from the Rabbi Yosef Yozel Horowitz, the Alta from Nevardak, right? The great Bali Musar. And he says, sometimes a person says, Rabbi Yosef Yozel says, sometimes a person says, yeah, I'm under control. I'm gonna go. I drink a l'chaim in the morning, and then the leila around before lunch, and then before just to settle down, so I can catch and regain some energy. I take another l'chaim, and then a little chaim and a tall glass of wine in the evening, maybe a beer, and I only read this, and I only look at YouTube videos, from 11 in the evening until 3 in the morning. That's it. But only 4 nights a week, but not 5 nights a week. And I can stop any time and under control, and I'm under control in this area and that area. Every drinker and every alcoholic will tell you. I'm not here to trigger anybody. We'll say we can stop any time. So he says like this. He says, here's the marshal. He says, you're walking down the street, and you see your friend Chaim, and Chaim is being pulled by 2 giant policemen. They're pulling him with great force. And you turn and say, whoa, Chaim, what's going on? I hope I don't mean to mention anybody. He says, what? He said, what happened? What happened?
That warranted that.
and Chaim turns to you with perfect equanimity, and he says, what are you talking about? He says, I'm taking them to jail. I'm taking them. And you think to yourself, wow, you're going to believe me, Chaim says, or your lying eyes? What?
It sounds like that guy had the
So he had the good defense. He had the good line over there. Yeah. But you say, something, Chaim, if what you're saying is true, okay, there's a simple way to prove it. Then just pause, stop where you're at, pivot, and take 10 steps, take 12 steps, okay, in the opposite direction. And if you could walk away from them and say, guys, I'll catch up with you later on, without them turning around and grabbing you with even greater force and clobbering you, then it's a proof that you're taking them and they are not, in fact, schlepping you. Right? So sometimes when we say we're under control and we can stop it, so what's the test? So the test is, person, look, this is what I heard in those words, that the coffee drinking me. The Zettel Cotton says a person can change themselves. And it's possible that Hergel Naso Teva, that a person does something, he comes up with a different, the Nazar is for 30 days, for somebody he comes up with a number 40. Also 40 is a transformational number. If a person does something for 40 days, he becomes a different person in that area. Let's say a person is, wakes up late. I'm always waking up late. Whatever it is, I can't. I missed that. And they say, something. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I like that feeling. When I'm up at 5 o'clock, you own the roads. You learn. It's quiet. Nobody bothers you. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for the next 40 days, even though for the last 40 years I've been a late sleeper, but now I'm going to check. And you get up, and a person does it. He decides that's the area. I just want to prove to myself that I can do it. After 40 days. He says that's one step, is that you're actually doing it, and it becomes a new habit. The other is also to take on a new mentality, a new mindset, and to wear it as a new identity. There's a few different things that will feed this new good habit. Is to say about yourself, I'm a morning guy. I remember I was learning Daf Yomi, and I've been learning, for a number of different cycles. I'm not going to say very proudly over here. There were many times and many years where I would learn it for a couple of days and then drop it and then re-pick it up and catch up quickly and falling behind and going ahead and feeling, losing 2, gaining 3, like that, uneven. And I went to visit a friend of mine in Boston, and on Shabbos, and on Sunday morning I went to his Daf Yomi shir. And he says to me, he brought me to his Daf Yomi shir, and he said, "What do you think of the shir?" I said, "Oh, it's a great shir. What a great Maggid shir, yeah, Baruch Hashem." He says, "You know what the best thing about Daf Yomi is?" I said, "Yeah, what?" He says, "It's Yomi. It's Yomi." And he said those words to me, "It's Yomi," and I nodded my head, yeah, it's Yomi. When I said those words, I haven't missed since. That was 20 years ago. You know, I haven't missed a day, except when I was sitting shiva for my mother and sitting shiva for my father. I didn't miss. I said, because it became like, if you're a Frum Jew, you're not going to miss Shachris, you're not going to miss Mincha, you're not going to blow up Marv, because that's your identity, you know? If you're a mikvah guy, you know, I'm a mikvah guy, I go to the mikvah in the morning. And you're proving yourself that you can do it. Right? So if a person takes on something, finds some area where I feel, and what happens if a person cannot stop for 40 days in some area, then it's a sign that this Rabbi was telling me that I'm not drinking the coffee. The coffee's drinking me. If I can't turn off the radio, then I'm not listening to the radio. The radio is babysitting me. I'm not shopping at the mall. The mall is shopping me. So the premise over here is that once a person feels like, here's an area, I don't have to be a total nuzzer, but I could take on a moral discipline, a regimen, and say to myself, let me pick an area and liberate myself. See if I can change myself in that area. And by doing it for 40 days, also the person's proving himself that it's possible to do it. Maybe some people heard there was the sota we know on the negative side. You know, a person should take on the regimen of Naziris when he hears that the sota actually happened, is because it broke a social barrier that was, you know, that was an iron wall, and now it became like possible for such a thing to happen. So maybe some people heard of Roger Bannister. You know Roger Bannister? Anybody heard? What?
4 minute mile.
He broke the 4-minute mile in the late 1960s. A doctor. It was thought impossible that somebody can a human being can run a mile in under 4 minutes. What's that?
Within a year after.
The year that he did it, exactly. So 10 plus, until he did it, no, it was impossible. Once he did it, then the barrier was broken, and other people. It seemed like it was not just a physical barrier; it was a psychological barrier that it's not possible to do it. But once a person demonstrates to himself in the Midah Tova Meruba that he can do something, then he can give you. So we start off, if the person may not mili. So then what happens is, now the person, if I don't take control of this thing, no one can do it for me. No one can even make me do it. No one can force me to do it. But if I detect to myself, this is an area where I want to, let me try it. Let me try for 40 days. And then, ukashni la'atzmi ma'ani, which means, I do believe means like this. I've seen some people who were able to be tremendously influential on other people, because when they worked on certain things to the point where they ended up creating the master key to the key to their own heart. Once they found out the key to their Yudei Tzadik Nefesh Behenta, once they knew the key for themselves, they were able to liberate themselves. Then they fashioned the master key for other people. They were able to help hundreds and thousands of other people. So that's the second part of the Mishnah. If I don't take control and evaluate some area in every area of my life, there's something that's pulling me away, or something that's tugging on me, something that I feel like, you know, I'm saying to myself, I'm okay. But if I take control, let me see if I can let go for 40 days and bring it under control, and realize that I can arrest it. I can arrest it myself. And by doing that, I've liberated myself, whether it's, you know, sugar, whether it's, you know, exercise, or whether it's you name it, lashon hara, cigarettes, phone, and I said, I'm going to let go for 40 days. Now the person becomes free. Now I've set an example for myself, and I have the tools to help other people. Now the third part of the mission, we understand. After that, we'll finish up with this. If a person has the key to help other people, and he's sitting on that key, if you have the master key to open up the treasure chest and the medicine chest to cure other people, and you're just only keeping it for yourself, then it's not the next question is, ukashni la'atzmi ma'ani. It's not an identity crisis anymore. It becomes a humanity crisis. What am I? And then once a person realizes that he has the ability to help and to encourage and to get other people on the train also, so now all of a sudden the clock begins to tick. He hears the pounding of the clock behind him. He says, "Im lo akshav emasai." Now is the time, and now is the best time to make things happen. So that's we see the Nazir is able to grab control of himself in some area. Mashru, we don't have to be a complete Nazir, but if we can grab a Nazir, a little thread of that Naziris in some area over there, and let's see how it works. So let's see what happens. We'll meet back in 40 days. Go ahead, guys. Thank you. Okay.